So the debt is putting money in my pocket, and bad debt is taking money from my pocket.
The difference between good debt and bad debt, and how you can actually make money using good debt. And the easiest way to stop being that person is to remove the temptation. Debt just makes the rich richer. And if you want to learn how to use good debt to create your wealth, or if you're a victim of bad debt, today's show is for you. Because what if I told you that not all debt is created equally? I'm your host, Alexandra Gonzalez-Ganoza, and this is where your financial freedom begins. For a lot of people, debt is just a four-letter word, but most people are told to stay away from it like the plague. And then many financial experts have actually built their entire empires around warning people against it and helping them escape from it completely. But not all debt is created equally. In 2017, Robert has this to say about debt. So numerous people my age actually think debt is horrible. And you just showed us a perfect example of cash flow and how debt can generate income. And many entrepreneurs use this formula to make money on a day-to-day basis.
So what most people do is they have student loan debt, SL, and that debt is going out this way. You know, it doesn't put any money in your pocket. You can say, well, I have a job. Well, that's still you working for it. So I don't work for any of this money here. I do this job once, set the deal up. Every year I add more and more and more of it. I'm borrowing money from here. It's coming here and going this way. So the debt is putting money in my pocket, and bad debt is taking money from my pocket. So the problem is, if you're going to use debt, you've got to be much smarter than this person here. You've got to be very, very smart. That's why I took real estate classes when I was 25, and I've never stopped taking real estate classes. Because you buy a piece of real estate and you make a mistake, this turns into a liability. This, if I get the renter leaves the place, this goes here that fast, and the cash flows that way. Okay, it's going out of my pocket. So it has nothing to do with real estate. It has nothing to do with the car. Nothing to do with student loan. It has to do with these two words here. So good debt, again, is debt when I borrow for this and it puts money in my pocket. If I had a car and I borrowed money from it and somebody rented from me as an Uber driver or something and it put money in my pocket, it would be an asset.
Those videos are always so nostalgic to watch. I can't believe it. I think I was like 20 years old at that time we filmed it. But like he mentioned, in order to be able to use good debt like the rich, you have to be really smart. Your financial intelligence needs to be at a different level than the poor and middle class. And so at Rich Dad, we don't feel negatively about debt. Instead, we make a really important distinction, like Robert made in this video, between the two types of debt, the good debt and the bad debt. So this is one of the hardest concepts for people to understand, because most of our lives, we've been taught that all debt is bad. And of course, it's wise to pay off bad debt or not to get into it in the first place. In the last episode, the last one we filmed of Millennial Money, I explained the difference between an asset and a liability. But today we're going to discuss another concept the rich live by, the difference between good debt and bad debt, and how you can actually make money using good debt. For example, a credit card, right? It's often used as bad debt because you're using it to buy things like liabilities for things like a big screen TV, the car you've been wanting, or the vacation to Italy that I brought up in the last episode, which clearly I really want to go. But on the contrary, a loan for an investment property that you rent out can be good debt if the asset's cash flow covers the debt payment and puts money in your pocket. So basically, the money you make from your tenant paying you the rent then covers your mortgage payment. So there's more money coming in, and that's paying for your good debt. So now let's go back to the example of credit cards. Bankrate.com reports that the average credit card interest rates are in the low 17% range. On top of that, credit cards often have hidden rates that can cost you hundreds of dollars for things like late fees, annual fees, and currency exchange rates, etc. The list goes on and on, as we know. And then credit cards are neither good nor bad in and of themselves. It's how you use them. But unfortunately, the poor and middle class often use their credit cards in the worst way possible by buying liabilities like televisions and vacations only to pay the minimum payment each month. They're basically living a life they can't afford with fake money. By doing this, they pay substantial amounts of interest over long periods for things, materials, and objects that eventually lose value. And I would see this all the time when I worked at the bank. It's a vicious cycle and it's a snowball effect because eventually they can't keep up with all the fees. There's a lot of loans out there that you can get, unfortunately, for liabilities, from things like car loans to personal loans to payday loans. And even when I shop online now, I see things like, and I'm sure you've seen them too, like Afterpay or credit cards for several retail stores. And obviously, some of the offers are pretty enticing, but they're not realistic. And of course, in today's society, you can find a way to take on more and more bad debt, and often at a really high price. The poor middle class also pull out loans for things they consider to be investments, like their personal home, because a house, just like we covered in the last episode, is not an asset. Just like we covered in the last episode, we discussed the differences between assets and liabilities, right? The very simple definition of an asset is that it puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. Your personal home only takes money out of your pocket. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get a mortgage, but don't do it thinking you're buying an asset. And especially don't take on way more than you can afford thinking it's a good investment. This method of using bad debt to buy things that lose value over time keeps the majority of people financially enslaved to debt for most of their lives. And when they finally decide to get out of bad debt, they spend years working harder and harder to pay it off. It's a lot of lost time and opportunity. Numerous people in America are drowning with bad debt and have no idea how to put good debt, like the rich, to work for them. And the reality is that before you can put good debt to your advantage, you need to take care of your personal bad debt. So if you're watching this and you have bad debt, here are a couple things you can implement today to eliminate your personal debt. So the first tip is, if you have credit cards with outstanding balances, keep only one or two of those credit cards in your wallet. Have you guys ever seen someone in line who's like rejected? It can be at the cashier at like your Publix or Fry's, or I don't know what supermarket you guys have, but they're rejected and they only go into their wallet to fish out, they only go into their wallet or purse to fish out for another credit card. And obviously more and more declined, right? Well, if that's you, starting today, you will no longer be that person anymore. And the easiest way to stop being that person is to remove the temptation. Don't carry around multiple cards. Keep your cards out of sight. Just like we say, out of sight, out of mind. And if you can, keep them maybe in a safe or a safety deposit box. And any new charges you add to the one or two cards you're using have to be paid off every month. Don't incur any more long-term bad debt. And only use cash when it's under $20, because it's honestly pretty astonishing how quickly our small day-to-day purchases add up, like things like your daily coffee or a snack. Those can cost you way more than you realize. I know it's easy to justify all those small purchases, right? Especially with our instant gratification. And we think, okay, only $3 for that gum or for the bottle of water. But at the end of the month, those purchases add up, especially if you don't have control over your finances just yet. And when you use physical paper cash, it can help you become more and more aware of what you're actually spending and how much you're actually spending. And hopefully, you'll reconsider those small purchases when you find yourself running out of cash quickly. So in the future, when purchasing things under $20, try using cash instead so you can monitor your spending habits and eventually change them. Tip number 2 is my favorite because it's a lot about focusing on how you can afford it and not thinking to yourself, I can't afford it. So the tip is to come up with $150 to $200 extra per month. For a lot of people, it can be as simple as mapping out your monthly expenses and seeing where you can stop spending on liabilities. Maybe you're eating out way more than you should be, or buying more clothes than you really need, or paying for online services you hardly ever use. The opportunities are all around. But if you really want to stretch yourself and increase your financial intelligence and spark the entrepreneur within you, look for ways to make an extra $150 to $200 a month. Try to find a way to increase your income. So start to ask yourself, how can you do this? What side hobby have you been wanting to start? Maybe you can freelance online. The list can go on, right? Find a way to pursue your passion and increase your income. And now, tip number 3, apply the additional 150 to 200 to your monthly payment of only one of your credit cards. Find the card that you have with the lowest balance and pay the minimum plus the 150 to 200 on that one credit card. Because the goal of the game is to limit your monthly payments on your bad debt. Paying off the card with the lowest balance will free up a good chunk of money each month. After paying your lowest balance on that card, plus the 150 to 200, pay only the minimum amount due on all the other credit cards. A lot of times people try to pay a little extra each month on all their cards, but those cards will never get paid off this way. So the fourth tip is that you can start implementing after this. The third tip is once the first card is paid off, apply the total amount you were paying each month on that card to your next credit card. Pay the minimum amount due on the second card plus the total monthly payment you were paying on your first credit card. So that includes that card's minimum payment plus the 150 to 200 you were paying. Keep doing this process with all of your credit cards. With each debt you pay off, add the full amount you were paying on that paid off debt to the minimum payment of your next debt. As you pay off each debt, the monthly amount you are paying on the next debt will increase. The fifth tip is once all your credit cards are paid off, use the same process with your car and house payments. If you follow this, I know you'll be really happy with the results and you'll be amazed at the shortened amount of time it takes for you to be completely debt free. Lastly, tip number 6. This is where all the fun starts to happen. This is where we start paving your way to your financial freedom. Now that you're completely debt free, congrats. Take the monthly amount you were paying on your last debt and put that money towards investments. This is the get rich part. The reality is, the more bad debt you pay off, the richer you are. Guys, that's less money going out of your pocket to fill up the pockets of big banks and creditors. But the real magic of this plan starts when you take the money you're using to pay your debts and you start putting it toward investments that cash flow each month. Suddenly, the money you were losing each month starts to make you money instead. And that's another life-changing event. Contrary to popular belief, debt is actually not something to be afraid of. It's actually a really powerful tool to build wealth when you use it correctly. And so now it's your turn. Make a commitment right now and start your path to pay off your bad debt and invest in your financial education so that when you're ready, you can apply the power of good debt to make you rich. If you're using debt for a business deal, don't do that deal unless the cash flow from the deal pays for your debt payment and expenses, and on top of that, provides a good return. This will ensure that cash comes into your pocket each month, which then provides you with continual income that you can use to also enjoy your liabilities that you've been wanting. The amazing thing about debt is it allows you to leverage your existing cash into many assets. For example, in real estate, you can buy investment properties with debt. The bank will give you a loan for 80% of the purchase price. And then you have to use your money or someone else's for 20% of the purchase price. Your job is really just to find a deal that pays the bank the interest on the 80% while still providing a decent return on your 20%. So using simple math, if you have $100,000 in cash, you could buy one property for $100,000 that gives off $800 a month in cash flow. That's a little over 9% annual return. Or you could use good debt to buy 5 $100,000 properties. The bank would lend you $80,000 for each property, and you would divide your $100,000 into 5 $20,000 down payments for the 5 different properties. At 5% interest, the payment on your loans would be around $500. So your cash flow on each property would be $300 a month. That's $800 in rent. You subtract the $500 in your debt payment, which gives you $300 per month, which actually would be a total of $1,500 because that's 300 times the 5 properties that you have, which equals $1,500 per month, which is an 18% annual return. That's twice as much you're earning than if you would have just used your own money to invest. You can then use the income from the properties to either invest in more assets, or you can buy something nice for yourself that you've been wanting since you know more cash is going to be coming in the next month from your investments. That's the power of good debt. So if you're looking for a more detailed step-by-step guide, we're going to have the ebook for you, Freedom from Bad Debt, in one of these links or on somewhere on the screen. And then you can also get the link from the description below. That ebook in combination with this video will help prepare you to escape from the bad debt so you can be ready to go into the good debt. That's all part of your journey to wealth, and I'm happy to be a part of it.